Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too because you are consuming content like this. The name of this amazing channel is Holistic Manifesting because I believe in a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we are destined to live. What I'm discussing in this video is why hustle culture is dying. Now, I was meditating before this message because I'm always like, I have so many thoughts on it, but I want to get it to where it makes sense. Someone can benefit from what I'm saying, and that there's clarity, there's clarity to it. So my apologies in advance if I hop all over the place a little bit, right? If anybody knows about hustle culture, it's me. I was raised in hustle culture before hustle culture was a thing. I was raised by two people who did not have 9-to-5 jobs in a household to where being an entrepreneur was king. That was the number one thing, is to get out of the systems that were impeding upon us every day, to put us into their, to be a cog in a machine in some kind of way. And while I agree with a lot of what was being taught in that particular time, I do understand the hustle mindset really, really well, right? Something I learned along the way, and I can see this in the push, like if you've looked at social media for the past 5 years or so, 5 to 10 in that kind of space, hustle culture was huge, right? I was thinking of one of my favorite people I used to watch because it was definitely a mindset I got into when it came to being successful in different areas of my life, right? David Goggins, I think that's his name. And I remember watching all the time thinking like, if you don't have the success, that means that you ain't trying hard enough. It was always like boom, 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 right? There's still some truths in every type of concept, in every type of way of being, but it doesn't mean that it's the whole truth, right? One of the biggest things that I've learned about hustle culture and why I currently see its slow death happening, meaning you see less and less videos and less information in general on how to pound the pavement and get everything you want and do this, do that, do this. And you see more videos on, or more information on social media related to rest, related to finding balance in your life, related to how can you live off less so that you can have a bigger life, right? Without having to give all of your lifeblood to the work mindset, right? And one of the biggest things is that it's an unsustainable approach to success in general. And the reason why it's unsustainable is for several reasons. But one of the biggest ones that I notice is that it wears down on you mentally and physically and emotionally and spiritually. It wears you out. Because the hustle culture mindset says you got to get up and eat, sleep, and breathe this level of success that you want to experience. And even when you see people get results from those things, everybody tends to forget that once you get results from those areas, you have to continue with this hustle mindset. You have to always be on guard. You always have to be ready. You always have to be in the mindset of go, 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 right? Even if you're a person that says like you're selling items online or something and you're 24/7 in it, you're on the websites where the social media sites, so like even TikTok has it, I believe, where you can like sell 24/7 and you're doing this. What you'll notice is that the minute your money's not looking right, or either the minute you need more money for something else, there's a constant recycling of the hustle energy. You have to get out there and make it and do it and get and make and do it again. And like things like sleep, things like eating properly, things like exercising properly and all of that, it becomes second fit, like it takes the back seat to the overall goal for success, right? Many times what I notice with a lot of people is the reason why I think it's dying a lot is because they're not getting the results that they want to get. I think any of us can be excited about trying something and like putting our energy and our mind wholeheartedly and at full force into something to create something. But once we start seeing that it's not necessarily yielding the results that we want to have, we start to step back and say, okay, what about this approach is maybe not the right approach, right? And so there's a nuance here that I think a lot of people are maybe tapping into, right? And that's that it doesn't mean that you stop going for things. It doesn't mean that you stop wanting to create specific success in your life. It just means that the approach you take to it is a much more balanced approach. When you have a hustle culture mindset, it really eliminates the idea of divine timing. It's too externally focused. It really eliminates the idea that you are not the only one putting this thing into place. And the energy wrapped around hustle culture is not a balanced energy. It's like it's full force. If you want to call it masculine energy, it's full force masculine energy. And then the feminine energy, which I think we all have a balance of both inside of us, takes a back seat. And while this might be okay for a while, but the part of you that needs to be nurtured, the part of you that needs to be loved and appreciated, the part of you that needs that soft place to land, that soft place to fall, it doesn't exist. So really, when you consistently going and you're in this hustle mode, you're running off fumes because you're not being replenished and you're not replenishing yourself. And many people in the mindset when hustle culture was huge, right? When you couldn't look anywhere without somebody talking about being a boss babe or a boss chick or something like that. What you notice is that there was no softness in the space. There was no, anytime you had to take a break away from it or, relax and rejuvenate and give yourself what you need, it was called being soft in a negative way. It was called, giving up and not wanting it enough, right? I saw that a lot in so many people because I used to listen to a lot of personal development, and I still do now to a certain degree, but I was a lot more into the personal development that was like, get it. And one of the biggest things was like, did you wake up with the success on your mind? Did you wake up with the right mindset? Did you wake up and immediately turn over and grab that notebook and grab that laptop and get right to it? If you put your mind, time, and energy into it 24/7 while you're not sleeping, you'll have that thing, right? And at the end of the day, when you don't see those specific results show up, you're just like, okay, there's an incorrect approach to this, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. And I think that's the biggest clincher for so many people. It's the same thing like if you're on some sort of a crash diet or something like that, and you're going all the way in with this crash diet, but you don't see any results. The first thing most people do is quit this diet, right? And the idea of hustle culture really comes from creating something for yourself, creating something that will free you up, creating something that will give you peace of mind, creating something that will give you freedom to where you can like run real hard and then you can rest. Run real hard and then you can rest. And that's the biggest idea related to it. And I don't think anything is horribly wrong with that mindset to a certain degree. But if you are able to balance your energies off the top and create a steady flow for yourself of ebbing and flowing with work that doesn't, that nor makes you too lazy or that burns you out completely, then you will see that there's long-term sustainability and long-term stability in that process. And in the meanwhile, while you're doing it, you don't ruin connections. You don't ruin relationships. You don't disconnect from people, places, and things that were important to you because you thought this goal or this success was just so important. And what I think everybody's seeing now with so many people, like I was mentioning to someone in the comments a few days ago, is that there's a collective healing of that energy being overused, of that energy being depleted, of that energy not being replenished and nurtured as it should be. And I don't think it matters what gender you are. If you were in that mindset, you can feel the weight of it hanging over you. And even when you do hustle hard and hustle to depletion and get those things that you truly want to experience and want to have, you may look around and you don't see any of the important relationships that you care about around you, right? You don't have any of those connections. Now, I'm a firm believer that some relationships don't need to go from point A to point B with you. That's not the whole point. But sometimes they do. I remember I was listening to Lisa Nichols, and if you're not sure about her, she's in the personal development space. And she was talking about how she really loved hanging with her cousins and being with her her cousins and her aunts and all this sort of thing. I was at one of her events. And she was saying how when she was in that mode and she was just like, I'm going to work 3 jobs if I have to. And she did. She worked 3 jobs. She gave up primary custody of her son to like her grandparent, to her mom. And she went all in. She was just like, I'm going to do it, work hard now. And then he'll have these things later and he'll care about that. And she was saying how she missed everything. She missed people's birthdays. She missed their weddings. She missed their events. Everything was less important than her final goal, right? And now she was talking about how she spent a lot of time trying to repair the relationship with her now adult son in that process. And yes, I feel like she's experienced immense success, right? And everything that she had and wanted to create, but at the end of the day, are all of those things worth it? And I think that's why so many people are content with watching other people go into hustle mode and watching other people get these certain results and not necessarily so big on, oh, I got to do that for myself, because we already know that there's a huge trade-off that happens when you push everything that you have into that one direction, right? Also, in the idea of not getting results, well, no, that is another point, but just the idea of the energetic balance. The idea of the energetic balance is truly off. And we see so many people in this space sort of like doing whatever it takes and doing whatever they got to do in order to get to these goals. But ultimately what they're creating and what they're achieving is getting more stuff. And that's a huge one, because I'm not a person that's against stuff. I'm not a person that's against material things. I'm not remotely a person that's against luxury items or anything like that. Matter of fact, I will sit and sometimes and look at pictures of elegant houses, elegant vehicles, luxury this and that, because I think it's beautiful to look at. Luxury vacations. I will sit and look at a Pinterest board of that. Not really Pinterest, but if it has to be Pinterest, I don't like Pinterest that much. Or either, somewhere on YouTube or something, I'll watch those things. But at the end of the day, sometimes I sit back in my home and in my things and in my space, and I'm like, this is more than enough for me. And I think that if you get into this hustle culture mindset and you don't have any really specific goals of like where you're going to put that success and how you're going to spend it and what's going to be important to you at the tail end of it, then you wind up just collecting a lot of stuff, because the minute it comes in, you're like, let me get the newest designer bag. Let me get the newest designer shoes. Let me get the newest designer clothing. And then you'll take pretty pictures and then you post them online. And then it's rinse, repeat, recycle, repeat, rinse over and over again, right? And I think that's what it's come down to for a lot of people. We can't really see where creating this life where we're just attaining more stuff is very important. Now, if you have ambitious goals to create certain nonprofits or something like that you want to improve a neighborhood or an environment, you want to pay for college tuition for maybe your nieces and nephews or something like that, or either your own children, you want to be able to take vacations and travel and do all these things whenever you want. I've even seen people that do hustle culture and do have a life like that eventually got tired of that life, that eventually was like, I've traveled to all these places and now I'm kind of like, what do I do next? So if you don't have a specific goal wrapped around it, you'll find yourself just spinning in circles, constantly consuming things as opposed to truly enjoying your life and your experience. And that's another thing. That's the last thing I'll talk about on this. One of the biggest reasons why I believe that hustle culture is dying and the whole era of the boss babe, this and that. I mean, because we already know, flat out tired. You can look at some of my other videos where I talk about resting and being in your divine feminine energy and how important that is and why everybody's so drawn to that. They're drawn to it because we've been exhausted on this hustle mindset. One of the biggest reasons is that you find that you're not really in the present moment enjoying yourself. You're not really enjoying the success that you've created, because it's always about doing the next thing, doing the next big thing, cranking out the next big idea. How am I going to sustain this? And it's a continuous flow. And what I think more people are craving today more than anything is peace and freedom. And it doesn't have to be luxury, peace and freedom, because what we're realizing is that the real luxury is the peace and freedom. The luxury is not the champagne and the chocolate covered, strawberries, is not the shrimp cocktail dishes and the high-end restaurants, the high-end vacations, and all those things are amazing. I enjoyed them myself. There's no doubt about that. But what we're realizing is that the real luxury is peace. And when you see people doing this hustle culture and they're creating these things and their whole life is social media and all they're doing is checking socials, checking accounts, checking numbers, making sure everything's always moving in a certain direction, you got to know that that's not a present moment mindset, and it's not peaceful. And it doesn't really create a lot of freedom, because once you create this image and this idea about you and who you are, and it's at a certain level, you have to continue to uphold that and to uplift it. And quite frankly, it can be exhausting. And that's what a lot of people are not interested in. So what you see more than anything is a lot of content is related to how can I get more out of what I already have? How can I put the least amount of energy into this thing and glean the most amount of peace and the most amount of freedom? And at the end of the day, I also think that's a huge issue when it comes to a lot of relationships and connections and stuff, because we're realizing that some of these things require us to give so much energy towards them, and it's not being put back towards us. And we can be in a hustle mindset with more than just getting material things and creating this material existence. We can be in a hustle mindset with relationships and connecting with other people and networking. Have you ever been to a networking event where people were literally strictly there to like gain something? Like, you'll be in these rooms and like people are speed dating everyone they meet. They're like, hey, nice to meet you. Hi. Well, I started a business 2 years ago and I'm really promoting my business. And it's like, everybody's just like whiplash. And it's like, that's networking. And I had a couple of years in my life to where I went to events like that and I did those things. But when I say there was no spiritual component to it at all, there was no present moment at all. Everybody in the room was worried about getting their information out there, sharing their business cards with other people, making sure people knew what their socials were, making sure they knew what their websites were, trying to sell a book, it was just continuous. And it was overwhelming. And I pulled myself out of that space. And that's why I've gotten into the space a whole lot more now. And I used to preach this and now I live it, to where I don't care what's going on. I don't care what's happening. I don't care what's working and what's not working. What I'm going to do is sit back and relax and attract what it is I want to experience in my life. And then I'm going to wait for the divine intervention, divine timing. And I'm going to wait for those intuitive moments to where I'm like, you know what? I should do that. You know what? I should do that. That's happened in so many areas of my life. You know what? I should write that book. One of the most successful books that I have, right? Low Places. I should write that book. I should write about that. It's like you get these moments to where your mind is open for a moment and all of that hustle energy has nothing on divine timing. It has nothing on that inspired action. It's like you'll be running 100 miles per hour in that hustle mode mindset, right? Trying to create and do and to have all these things, right? And then if you're sitting back and relaxing and you're resting and you're meditating, you're doing the breath work and you're regulating your nervous system and you've gotten the chaos and the drama away from your life to a certain degree as much as you can, you'll find that in those quiet moments, that's when you hear the whispers of the universe. That's when you hear the whispers that say, hey, you should make that video about this. And then you wind up making a video with, no real notes, no real insight, no real calculation of why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. And you wind up reaching a whole bunch of people, way more than you've ever reached before. And I think that's what we have to give our energy and time to. But that means is that there's a huge push to work on finding contentment in everyday life. To finding contentment and not having all of these big name and luxurious items. Because like I think about my mom's generation, while there were a lot of flaws in those generations and what they were doing, and we can say flaws, but it was just process and development of people. But literally their biggest goal was to have a family. For the most part, everybody you ran into, everybody you connected to was to have a family. And yes, they were trained to be and live in that certain way, but our generation is no different. We wonder, like, why do we want this private jet? Why do we want these designer clothing? Why do we want this bank account that's up to the wazoo? Why do we want to experience all these things? Because we're being shown it and we're being trained to desire it. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with those things, but always make sure that you realize there's no such thing that's not a social construct to some degree. And when we understand this, then we can pull back and say, okay, what really makes my heart sing? What really makes me feel like I'm alive? Maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe it's having a family, right? Maybe it's having a spouse. Maybe it's having kids. Maybe it's being a doctor. Maybe it's doing all the boss chick things and all that kind of stuff because it comes easy to you to be that way. But I think it's more important than anything is to do it at a sustainable level and do your best to balance those energies out. Balance out those frequencies, because when you are pushing too hard and you're going too hard, there's no way something major is not being left behind, whether it's your health, whether it's your connections, whether it's your mindset being, scooped up and moved constantly and not being able to be in the present moment. Something is being left by the wayside. So these are all my reasons. And I know I kind of rambled. I hope that message came out right, because sometimes I'm like, do I have clarity there? I meditated and everything before this message. It's just that the reasons why I think hustle culture is dying, and I'm not saying it's completely dead. I'm not saying that anything is wrong with it if you decide to go forward with that mindset. But what I'm saying is that it is not what it used to be. The boss chick, the boss babe, these people. And also, for funny about it, many of the influencers related to those mindsets, you don't even really see them around anymore like they used to be. And many of the reasons is because they too had to even take breaks. Some of the favorite YouTubers that I used to have that used to hustle hard and go crazy at it, they've like completely just abandoned their pages to some degree. And I'm just like, what happened to that? Because the methods and the movement that they were employing wasn't sustainable. And I think that's the biggest thing. Whatever you do in life, you have to make sure that it's sustainable. And if hustle culture doesn't make you sing, it doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're unambitious. You can be ambitious without even leaving your bed. And I'm not even kidding you. You can be ambitious and meditate. You can be ambitious and do breath work. You can be ambitious and allow things to be attracted into your life. You can be ambitious and believe in divine timing and inspired action. That doesn't change that. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.